This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Ever notice your dog slowing down and having health issues and wonder, what can I do to make them better? Well, my friend, add Rough Greens to your dog's food for 90 days and I guarantee you'll see changes that will amaze you. Greetings. Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, inventor of Rough Greens here, and I invite you to give your pup the Rough Greens 90-Day Challenge. In the first 30 days, you'll see shinier coats and increased energy. By day 60, your dog will have a stronger immune system, less shedding, improved joint function, all due to the live nutrients that you've added to their diet. And at 90 days, better digestion, reduced inflammation, improved heart health, and you may even have reduced their cancer risk. Fetch your dog a free Jumpstart trial bag today. Go to roughgreens.com. Use promo code 90day. That's ruffgreens.com. Use promo code 90day. You just cover the shipping. You don't have to change your dog's food to improve your dog's health. Just add a scoop of Rough Greens.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight we're talking about the world news and what you can do about it. A lot of times you listen to the news, you watch the news, and it can be overwhelming. All these tragic things happening at one time, what does one do about it? What are we supposed to do about it? Are we supposed to just, act like it's no big deal? Are we supposed to sit on the couch and cry? Are we supposed to be literally stuck at home, unable to go to work because we're so depressed about what's going on around us? And being a therapist and a life coach, I find several clients that go through this. If you're going through this right now, you're not alone. There are a lot of people out there that can't go to work after they turn on the TV because they are so depressed and sad about the situations of the world. And tonight I want to talk a little bit about the stuff that's going on right now, the stuff that's going on right now in the world, and I want to talk about how and what you can do about it. The most recent thing that happened is that Bangkok bombing. A deadly blast rocks Thailand and the capital. A bomb exploded close to a popular shrine in the center of the Thai capital, killed at least 19 people and injured more than 120. And it's interesting because they're saying that it was actually a motorcycle bomb that was carrying the bomb, and it killed several, people that were actually from there, but it also killed some visitors of the area. And being that's a major attraction area, they believe that this might have been done to actually curtail, some of the traveling for tourism. It's interesting. The national TV channel quoted the prime minister as saying that the government would set up a war room to basically talk about the response and to coordinate a specific response about the situation. The national police chief said that 10 Taiwanese has been confirmed dead, along with 1 Chinese and 1 Filipino. Whoever planted this bomb is cruel and aimed to kill, he said. Planting a bomb there means that you wanted to see a lot of people dead. The police said that 123 people had been injured. The government in Hong Kong also said that 3 of the residents were among those who were wounded. The Bangkok Post quoted police as saying that the 3 kilograms of TNT had been stuffed into some sort of pipe. They were at the beginning saying that it was stuck into a shrine, into the actual shrine, and there was some sort of electrical current suspected to be used about 30 meters from the scene. However, now they've actually changed their mind and are talking about something totally different. They're talking about how this was actually presented itself in a situation that was more of that of a motorcycle actually carrying the bomb. A motorcycle bomb has exploded in the commercial and tourist center in Thailand's capital, Bangkok, killing the same 19 people and 120 people injured. So the story's changed a little bit. And, that's how it goes a lot of times when you're dealing with the news and a breaking story hits and things change. And so at one time they thought it was a bomb that had actually been put in to an actual shrine, but now it looks like it might have been a motorcycle bomb. When you think about situations like that, you think about people visiting shrines. You think about them being educated, familiarizing themselves with the area, maybe praying or meditating. And that can always push us a little bit in a depressed state, because all of us want to have a chance to be able to meditate, to pray, or just to think, just to be able to walk from point A to point B and not be dead, not be scared. And what about the future bombings that could possibly happen as well? I was reading another story. It was a big deal today as well as the Bulls. They're running the Bulls. The Bulls killed 7 in Spain today during the summer festivities. The Bulls have gored over 7 people to death during these festivities across Spain since the beginning of July. It's very interesting. The deaths occurred during bull running in the streets, not in the bull rings. It's unusually high number of fatalities for such a short period of time. Among them, a 36-year-old town councilor gored, that was interesting, north of Madrid. And it's interesting, you go through these processes, though, and you learn about all this stuff. And the last thing I wanted to be doing is running with the Bulls. I'm going to tell you that straight up. To me, that's kind of putting yourself out there for something that can happen. And I feel bad about these people that have died, but at the same time, I think that there's sometimes and some things we can do to safeguard ourselves maybe a little better than to put ourselves in the line of fire. However, a counterpoint to this is that last year, more than 7,200 bulls and steers are castrated bull calves, were killed by bull fighters across Spain. The news website El Diario reports that nearly 2,000 bullfights are actually held in the country every year, but the numbers are falling. In 2010, Catalonia became the second Spanish region after the Canary Islands to ban the tradition. I think that's interesting because opponents condemn bullfighting, obviously, as barbaric, but it still has many fans in Spain, including the Prime Minister himself. A Spanish law passed in 2013 defends bullfighting as a part of the nation's cultural heritage, saying that it's the state's duty to preserve it and to promote it. And I think that's interesting. I guess it's all about the money. And according to Spanish economic lecturer Juan Medina at an area university, he actually states that bullfighting generated, $313 million. So $313 million in 2013. That's interesting. And a lot of that income came from sales tax. And I have to sit there and think about that, though, that I'm not a big proponent of animals fighting. I don't believe in animals fighting. I don't believe in us fighting animals to the death. I do not agree at all with dog fighting whatsoever. I think it's barbaric, wrong. And I think that you have to sit there and kind of look at that. I mean, the running the bulls is one thing, but that's a lot of animals to kill in 1 year. And I think that's something that we could look at too, because when we're thinking about the news, not always do we have to think about the casualties. We need to think about maybe the possibilities around it, the precursors. But also it's interesting, out of that story, the one thing that I took from it that was very uplifting is that in 2010, Catalonia became the second Spanish region after the Canary Islands to ban their tradition of bullfighting. And I have to give them a hand for that. I think that's something to be commended on. And I think that if you look at the news sometimes it feels like it's all real negative. And sometimes it kind of feels like it really is. But there's always these silver linings. And to me, I would take that out of that story as a silver lining. And that to me is something that's very interesting because I don't agree with animals fighting animals. I don't agree with cockfighting. I do not agree with dog fighting. And I don't agree with, fighting to the death. I also argue, though, with when humans fight to the death, I have a problem with that, too, and I think that becomes, it's a very violent.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Ever notice your dog slowing down and having health issues and wonder, what can I do to make them better? Well, my friend, add rough greens to your dog's food for 90 days and I guarantee you'll see changes that will amaze you. Greetings. Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, inventor of Rough Greens here, and I invite you to give your pup the Rough Greens 90-Day Challenge. In the first 30 days, you'll see shinier coats and increased energy. By day 60, your dog will have a stronger immune system, less shedding, improved joint function, all due to the live nutrients that you've added to their diet. And at 90 days, better digestion, reduced inflammation, improved heart health, and you may even have reduced their cancer risk. Fetch your dog a free Jumpstart trial bag today. Go to roughgreens.com. Use promo code 90day. That's ruffgreens.com. Use promo code 90day. You just cover the shipping. You don't have to change your dog's food to improve your dog's health. Just add a scoop of Rough Greens.
Topic. It's a very violent nature. I mean, it's like old school there, and I just don't really agree with it. But that is a silver lining if you're thinking about that story. On a more happy note, Bug Killing Book, these Bug Killing Books pages actually clean murky drinking water. So there's a book that they devised, a scientist did, a doctor really, with pages that can be torn out to filter drinking water. And it's been proved effective in the first field trials. And that's really amazing because these drinkable books combines treated paper with printed information on how and why water should be filtered. Its pages actually contain nanoparticles of silver and sometimes copper. And if you've done any sort of research on it, and I've done a lot of research on the nanoparticles of silver, copper, and even gold, even platinum, and various other metals, they can kill bacteria. And if you've ever done any research on specifically silver, colloidal silver, it can kill bacteria, and it can kill bacteria in you, can kill bacteria in the water as it passes through it. It's kind of like a natural antibiotic. You know, in trials at 25 contaminated water sources in South Africa and Bangladesh, the paper successfully removed more than 99% of the bacteria. You know, and that's interesting because the resulting levels of contamination are similar to the U.S. tap water, the research actually say. And tiny amounts of silver or copper also leach into the water, but they're very low. And it's not a bad thing. Silver and copper in low dosages to take in. It's actually kind of good for you. And these results were recently presented at the 250th National Meeting of the American Chemical Society in Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States. And it's interesting because this doctor that actually invented this, postdoctoral researcher at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, developed and tested the technology for the book over several years ago, working at McGill University in Canada, and then at the University of Virginia. And I think this is interesting because this is a big discovery. You know, for a lot of us who don't live in Africa, South Africa, in Ghana, or in Bangladesh, and there's other places around the world, obviously, that have a tough time getting fresh drinking water. But to have a difficult time of getting fresh drinking water, that's something most of us never think about. I mean, that's a basic life necessity, is water that's not going to kill you or make you sicker when you drink it. And this doctor, and I don't want to butcher the name, Dr. Teri Dankovich, that's from the Carnegie Mellon University, said that 633 million people around the world do not have access to clean drinking water. And so all you need to do is tear out a paper out of this book, put it in a simple filter holder, and pour water into it from the rivers and streams and wells, and out comes clean water. And the dead bacteria as well. She was telling that to BBC News. That's very interesting. And I think this is a very big scientific discovery because people can actually use this paper to clean their water. And these books actually last for quite some time. They could actually filter a person's water supply for over 4 years. And I think I'm interested to hear more about Dr. Teri's work, and I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on that because to me, that is positive news right there. To me, yes, it's sad that people don't have access to clean water. This is an awful situation, but there is something that's coming about that's going to help the situation, mitigate it, and allow these people to have clean water. And that to me is a big deal. That to me is commendable. And that to me is a success story. Let's see how it plays out. You know, the next story I want to talk about is that they're talking about video game violence and how, you know, the video games can play into a violent nature. And right now, so far, everything that's been done on that, they don't really have hardcore evidence to prove it. And I have to say that, yes, some violent video games are pretty violent. And any time that I've actually talked to people after they've been playing a violent video game, they're very edgy, anxiety-ridden, very edgy, anxious, kind of, I don't know, stressed out. I don't see a calming effect. I don't see a relaxed effect. I see more of an anxious, almost just like on-edge effect. And I'm not saying that causes violence, but it definitely doesn't cause people to calm down. I mean, when people are in those first-person shooter games, and they're going after 1 million people coming after them, if anything, their heart's racing. It's the opposite of calming down. It's the opposite of de-stressing. And I think there is a little bit of point to the violence thing. And I think there's some people out there that could play video games every day of their life that are violent and not ever be violent, not ever pick up a gun, not ever cause a problem. But I think there's some people out there that's all they need is to get that in the subconscious, and that can afflict them into causing pain on other people in the human world, you know, in reality. And they're going to continue to do more investigation and more trials on that because we're going to need more investigation. And, you know, that's just the way life is. But I think for the most part, when you watch violent movies, when you read violent text, it causes your mind to make these stories, to see these things. So subconsciously, you have like this kind of like violent realm in your brain. And the last thing I want to do is ingest a bunch of violent, you know, things to read, violent TV. I don't really want to go there. I mean, you got to think about it. Whatever you intake, you know, is what you're thinking about, is the way you're living, is how you see things. And I think that this is important in recognizing the fact that when we take in positive messages and we take in things that are good, it really helps us to have an overall, well, more peaceful feeling about life. You know, I'm not saying that you're going to become some sort of violent killer the more violent stuff that you watch, but I am saying that your well-being and your ability to be at peace and calm is definitely not going to be the same as if you actually really curtail the violent intake of media and really watch, what you listen to, what you played. You know, the next concept I want to talk about is that CBD oil. They're talking about how CBD oil is curing cancer. CBD oil is curing cancer, and I want to know more. I have been researching this quite a bit. And CBD oil is a certain thing. It's not weed. You can't get high off of it. I mean, for the most part. I mean, most of this stuff is very low THC levels, almost none, basically. And it's for sale to help with specific benefits. And I think
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Ever notice your dog slowing down and having health issues and wonder, what can I do to make them better? Well, my friend, add rough greens to your dog's food for 90 days and I guarantee you'll see changes that will amaze you. Greetings. Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, inventor of Rough Greens here, and I invite you to give your pup the Rough Greens 90-day challenge. In the first 30 days, you'll see shinier coats and increased energy. By day 60, your dog will have a stronger immune system, less shedding, improved joint function, all due to the live nutrients that you've added to their diet. And at 90 days, better digestion, reduced inflammation, improved heart health, and you may even have reduced their cancer risk. Fetch your dog a free Jumpstart trial bag today. Go to roughgreens.com. Use promo code 90day. That's ruffgreens.com. Use promo code 90day. You just cover the shipping. You don't have to change your dog's food to improve your dog's health. Just add a scoop of Rough Greens.
Might have higher levels, but for the most part, this is pure oil, and it has been shown to possibly cure cancer. I don't know if there's been a cure, but it has actually helped quite a bit, and I'm interested in learning more about that. Just recently, the state of Texas is allowing the sale of CBD oil, and I think that starts up here soon, and I think it has to be from a doctor's prescription. But there has been a lot of milestones covered, and I think this is some interesting stuff to think about because, I think a lot of people have thought that cancer is a death sentence, and I think that I think this gives us some clarity to realize that there are other options and not just CBD oil. I think that there's some holistic advantages that we can take as well. And, a lot of times when we step back and we get to see some of these new studies, we realize that it's not just one way that can benefit us. It's not just one thing that can cure us. I think there's a lot of options. I think there's a lot of plants and options out there that we have no idea what they do. There's animals out there that we have no idea what they do. I know that this is a far-fetched idea, and some people aren't a big fan of it. But, who knows? The cockroach could actually have an amazing reason for being here besides scaring the crap out of me and everybody else I know. Think about it. Animals and plants, these derivatives and these herbs have things and are applied to things. And I think if we look at it from a different spectrum sometime, and we open our mind and allow ourselves to have a different perspective and to see things differently, we can really find some hope and even possible cures for some of these big diseases that a lot of people have been dying from all these years. Also recently they were talking about heroin abuse in the United States and that the U.S. government is going to spend $5 million to help addicts get the information they need, not just incarceration. And I think that's a good way of going by it. I think that there's a lot of people in prisons right now, unfortunately, who they're in there for drugs, for one drug deal. And I'm not saying that all drugs and drug-related arrests are not right or bogus. I'm saying that some of them are, but I think some of them go in for one drug arrest and they just can't seem to get their life back in order. And they never really address the big issues, right? The big issue is that a person's addicted to drugs, okay? It's not that they should probably go sit in a jail cell for the rest of their life. Maybe they should go to rehab and really be forced to clean up and to get back into society and to figure out what they want to do and to get a job and to move back into it. I think that means something. Because I'd rather see somebody that was addicted to heroin get off of it, not take another derivative of another drug that's just kind of a fake heroin. I'd rather see them get cured or, get over the drug and become a good part of society again. And I think that most people want to be productive to a certain degree. And I think that's something that's interesting and also positive. And I'd like to see more of that happen. Last but not least, before I get into the concept of how you can actually deal with this news, is that the dentist that killed Cecil the Lion has reopened his Minneapolis office, his Minneapolis dental office, and I don't know how y'all feel about that. But to me, I'm kind of happy that they made a point about this. Because I think that there's come a time where this is no longer acceptable. And I think that, honestly, until people stop, we have to make an example out of folks. And I know that sounds awful. And I don't like, saying, we're going to make an example out of somebody at all either. But I think that when you're not doing maybe necessarily the right thing, it's good to kind of put it out there in the open, especially when you're gloating about it and you're causing people distinct pain. And not only that, I mean, I love lions and I love animals, and that hurts me. And the last thing I want to do is to see that. I don't agree with it. And I know that you can say, well, you don't have to agree with it. But I don't agree with it. And I know there's a lot of people out there that would have to argue with me. And I know there's a lot of people out there right now that are appalled that took place. So with that said, you have a lot of news out there on a daily basis that you kind of get some sense of accomplishment. You see the world kind of coming together and things working out. On the other hand, there's some news out there that's not like that. There's bombing and innocent people murdered and killed. There's innocent lions killed. Just for a trophy. Just to say they killed this lion is awful. There's people that are murdered by bulls, but they're also killing bulls by the thousands. But on the other hand, you have certain countries and certain areas that are outlawing it. You have certain parts of Spain that are outlawing it. You have a concept of clean drinking water being an availability in countries that have never had this. Better yet, you have a possibility for cures for a big killer of cancer. So how do we deal with all this news? How do we deal with these situations? What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to deal with it? What are we supposed to get out of it? And what is too much news intake? The first thing that you can do about all this news, because you know what? We haven't even talked about your life. We haven't even talked about the stresses and the strains and the issues and the responsibilities that you have to deal with every day. We're not even talking about that. You have all this stuff going on. Okay, let's think about it. You probably got kids. And if you don't have kids, maybe you're married, not married, but you have work, you have responsibilities, got to get up in the morning, got to take care of things, got to take the dog out, got to do all this, got to do all that, got to pay all the bills, got to make sure the car is running, got to make sure the house is being paid for. All this stuff. Not to mention personal issues, family issues. Maybe your sister, maybe your brother's in rehab. Maybe your mom or dad just died. Maybe you just lost your job. On the other swing, maybe you just got married. Maybe you just had a child. Maybe you just got a new car trying to figure out how to pay for it. Maybe you just moved and got a new job. There's all the good and the bad. It just depends on how we define it. However, the news, if we don't watch out, can stress us out. So the first thing that you can do about dealing with the world news today, what you can begin to do right now, is to get the news you need and be done with it. I request that you stop watching news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'll tell you why. When you watch news 24/7, it stresses you out. It stresses you out. It's like what? It's like playing a video game all day long. A war game. It increases your heart rate. And it's kind of just, it regurgitates the same stories over and over again and doesn't give you any way to digest it. It doesn't give you a solution. It doesn't point out the positive light. It just points out a lot of the negative a lot of times. Where it bleeds, it leads, right? We've heard that, where it bleeds, it leads. And so, if you're watching that type of news, you want to literally take small bites and get out of there. Turn the TV on. Don't leave the ticker tape on the bottom of the news. And stop reading about it all day. Stop listening to it all day, because you've got to have some peace and solitude, and you've got to deal with your own responsibilities. When we watch news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we have a difficult time putting things in perspective. And we're stressed to the gill. We're so stressed out that any little thing just revs us up. The second thing is that if you have difficulty with depression, if you're having difficulty with depression, I implore you to think about it and take a sabbatical from the news. Take a sabbatical. Take a sabbatical from the news, because it's going to be extremely therapeutic for you. If you are battling depression in any way, shape, and form, Taking a simple sabbatical from the news will do you a lot of good. Because right now, you just need to deal with your life. You need to deal with the issues that are there right now. And that's not to mention that maybe some of this depression comes from watching the news all the time. And you feeling as if you have nothing you can do, as you feel that your hands are being tied. The more you watch the news, if you're in a depressed state, the more you feel that you cannot overcome it. The more you feel your hands are being tied, and the more you feel that you're helpless and hopeless. And so I implore you right now to take time away, take a sabbatical from the news. Just try it out. I know it's going to be difficult in the beginning. I know it's going to be difficult in the beginning because it's an addiction. Start off with 1 day at a time. And I feel that after 7 days of doing this, you're going to have more clarity. And you're going to feel like an overall more successful person because the issues that you're dealing with, you actually have the ability to do something about it. And a good example is that when you're depressed, even when you're not depressed, when you watch the news and you see a lot of bad, negative things taking place, you want to help. But when you can't, you feel like your hands are tied. Feeling like your hands are tied and feeling desperation is not something you want to feel when you're desperate and when you're depressed. It's time to take a sabbatical from the news for a few days and then check yourself and see how you feel after that. And I also advise maybe keeping a journal, keeping a diary, keeping a daily diary, keeping a daily journal of how you feel. What's changed? When you wake up in the morning, how has it been different? When you go to bed, how do you sleep better? Do you sleep better? Do you feel better? And it might take a few days because your mind might be racing about what you're missing. But eventually you're going to get some clarity that maybe you haven't had in a while. Maybe that depression is not going to be as extreme. I'm not saying your depression is just going to go away like poof. But I'm saying you might feel a lot better. I'm thinking you will. The next thing that you can do is don't consume news media 2 hours before going to bed. If you don't suffer from depression or manic depression and you have a tendency of wanting to watch the news, I do extremely stress the fact that you don't want to watch the news right before you're going to bed. You want to intake positive, authentic information, content. Reading a book is a good idea. Watching maybe a pleasant documentary. I mean, there's options that you can intake that are perfect for your state prior to sleep. So the state of rest that allows you to relax and to slowly get into a night's sleep. I had a friend of mine recently, one of my best friends. We've been friends since elementary school. His mom bought him a book for Christmas, and it was about the end of the world. And he was reading that book every night before bed. And on day 2, the next day he calls me and he says, I can't sleep. I haven't been able to sleep in 2 days. I try to go to bed, I can't sleep. I'm up all night. I said, well, what's changed? He goes, nothing. And the next day he called me and goes, yeah, the one thing that's changed I figured out is this book that I'm reading. I'm like, what the book? What's the book about? He goes, on the end of the world and how we're all going to die. And I go, well, that could be, that is your problem, actually. It's not could be, but that is your problem. Think about it. A lot of times we subject ourselves to things that we should never subject ourselves to, especially before we're about to get some sleep. When you are heading to bed, you need to be in a state of rest. You need to be relaxed and at peace. The last thing you want to do is be all stressed out, heart racing, chest palpitating, all that stuff. You want to be rest and relaxed. And so I advise, reading a good book that's very calming and soothing, meditating, reading a soulful book, maybe watching a nice documentary on a different area of Antarctica or some other place in the world that you've never been that just basically shows you about the country or shows you about the area. It's like a book that's come to life on the screen. Also maybe listening to some light music is good. I also like taking a walk, having some sort of exercise. Light exercise is always nice. Turning that TV off and maybe have a conversation with the family is a good thing too. Puts things into perspective. Last but not least, just like I was saying, the idea of reading a book or going on a walk is pleasant. And you know what those things do is it kind of changes up the routine. It changes up the mundane. It gets us out of this life that we've been living a lot, this one that we've created. And a lot of times the life that we've created can be kind of keep us down. It can keep us in this formulation where we might not feel like we have a lot of power. And that's one thing about Perspectives with Ashley Burgess, that there's always more answers, less questions. I'm a big believer that good quality, authentic content should always stimulate the brain, activate the heart, and answer questions. And leave you not feeling fearful, but feeling loved and supported. If you have any questions or you want to know more about me or the things that I'm working on or stuff in my planet, my world, go check out ashleyburgess.com. Ashley, A-S-H-L-E-Y, Burgess, B-E-R-G-E-S, B-E-R-G-E-S.com. Check me out. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook, and also Perspectives with Ashley Burgess has its own Facebook page, and we want to hear from you. So until next time, Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back this time in 3 shakes.